you're right. The percentage of people who engage in non-monogamy, right, is far beyond. I tell clients that all the time. It comes up in conversation when either they're coming in because they or their partner, there's been infidelity, and it breaks my heart every time that people think they're so alone in it, because it does feel so isolating. It does. I mean, it's such a betrayal, so devastating. But feeling the humiliation around that, of like, that it happened to them for a reason. There must be something wrong with them.
Yes.
How do you navigate that world with your clients when you're dealing with the infidelity, like, around that? And then, I mean, such an important comparison that it's not the same as being obviously open
Right,
with your
right,
partner.
right, right. I mean, I think, for a lot of us, like, that was the path before, right? Where you're just like, I really struggle. Like, I personally have really struggled with monogamy.
Yeah.
And there's been such this like deep chronic shame around what that means about me as a person, as a partner, as, do I even deserve to be someone's therapist if I'm like struggling with this? And,
Yeah.
the ways that, like, I think about it as like in a generational term too, right? Like, if I was born 10 years earlier, like, I don't think I'd be here. I think I would just continue to like be very secretive and,
Mhm.
shutting it down and trying so hard to like stay within the confines of traditional marriage. If I was
Right.
born 10 years later, I think I would have arrived here way earlier and, had not had to experience all of that shame.
Yeah.
And so I think our times are changing in such a liberating way where this can be a conversation and it's so much more normalized. Like, if you go on the dating apps, like, so many more people are putting like ENM or poly and partnered, whatever, on their dating
Right.
profiles, especially since COVID, when people are like examining, okay, I'm spending all my time with this person. Is this what I really want for myself? Is this the life that I want to create? And how do I expand in ways that feel rich and fulfilling without blowing everything up?
Hmm.
And I remind my clients, like, you know what? Like, there's two different things, right? There's the betrayal and like everything that needs to happen with like trust, and reestablishing and healing and repairing from that. But then there's also
Hmm.
like, there's more than, break up or never do this again, right? Like, there's
Yeah.
lots of different ways that relationships can look now. And
Yeah.
you don't have to be so confined to what you think, the choices are.
Yeah, such a good point. Like, so important finding the gray in between. It doesn't have to be that all or nothing. And even this idea that when infidelity takes place, that doesn't have to be the deal breaker of a relationship. That doesn't have to be the end. Like, there can
Mhm.
be exploration, there can be healing. And then, like you're saying, there could be a pivot if that's appropriate. But there are so many other options available. I love how you said, well, I don't love it for you, and I'm sorry that you experienced this, but let me validate it for you. How you're being so honest with, what does this mean for me as a therapist? Because I have gone through that so much, and I have been so, transparent with my ex about that. He knows it's one of my biggest fears. That was a big reason even for this podcast, was that I was like, I can't keep showing up as this thing that everyone wants me to be, because that's not who I am. And it feels really inauthentic to me. It feels really trapping to me. But that's something I've talked to him about before, is like, what does that mean for me as a therapist, that I've struggled with monogamy and I have struggled with making decisions that people come in and seek therapy for, that they're like, what's wrong with me? That's so validating to hear you say that as well, that even as therapists, we are so human.
We're so human. And I think that's like, part of like the liberation psychology journey, the decolonizing journey, is that like, part of this is flattening that hierarchy where like it's the expert blank slate model of like, oh, I'm just
Mm.
here like, with my pen and paper, like making observations and, completely detached from just humanity. And part of
Right.
it's like, sure, you got to have boundaries and be like judicious in your self disclosure, but there's also like a lot of just connection around being able to say like, hey, I've experienced that too. And like, this is all just part of my process because I have been able to be more frank about like my lived experiences as a woman of color, growing up as, you know, an Asian American immigrant, and all of these different factors that have very much colored my worldview and how I approach the work of therapy. And this is just another layer of like how my identities do impact how I show up in the therapy room.
Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also find me on Instagram at Dr. Elizabeth Fedrick.